After what always feels like an age during the international break, we are back. Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you had a terrific international break. I know many of you don't really enjoy it. You prefer having FPL, the content, the football, and a few days until the football returns. But at least for now, the content is here. Personally, I had a very enjoyable international break and one which really re-energized me to go at the season again and produce content. And as such, I'm very much looking forward to not only the game in a way I haven't for a while, but also the content that I will be producing. And hopefully that translates into the quality of the video. Today, as you can see on screen, for you, I have a look at the wildcard, naturally, and as the title suggests, 5 different wildcard drafts, which we're going to run through. But before that, I look at the forwards in some depth, considering there's so many options and it's so challenging at the moment, especially like structurally, how many did you get? So we touch on that, as well as looking at the midfielders and a very brief look at captaincy as well. And the midfielders is done in a slightly different way, given how many of them there are. So a lot to look forward to and a lot of important discussion points in this video. If at any point you enjoy, a like, a hype, a subscribe, all greatly appreciated. But regardless, it's good just to be back. And with that being said, let's hop into it. To start this section, I will have a look at the different categories and how the forwards are comparing to both the midfielders and the defenders, with a very different season to what many expected, not just in terms of results, but also I would say styles of play, the amount of goals scored, and of course the introduction of DEFCON and how that's influenced the game and the value of the forwards. And then I'll go from macro to micro by looking at João Pedro, Jarrod Bowen, Jean-Philippe Mateta, Nick Voltemada, Victor Gyökeres, Alexander Isak, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and Lyle Foster. All options that are on the table for some people and all split up into different categories depending on their price point. So let's start. Let's start with the more macro level discussion, something that usually happens in and around an international break, and that's just the value of the forwards overall. The upper echelon of the forwards, I'm going to leave Erling Haaland aside because he's in a league of his own. The upper echelon of the forwards, so for example, João Pedro and Jarrod Bowen, the guys who are 2 and 3, have actually kept pace fairly well, all things considering, with those midfielders who are basically not named Antoine Semenyo, and even the defenders. There's not too big of a gap between the top defenders and JP and Bowen. You might want to take the Arsenal defenders and put them aside, particularly like Timber, who's had a freakish haul so far. But other than that, even like the Palace defenders who have done so well, they're not too far behind, right? 10, 15 points at the absolute maximum. And with the way that the season's gone so far, it's a deficit, which I would say is not one you're going to complain about too much. The season has been one where the teams going forward just haven't looked as good. And defenses overall have looked fairly solid. Obviously, you've had the introduction of DEFCONs in FPL as well to aid with the defenders. And we need to adjust to that. But the forwards in general themselves, in isolation, I don't think have been particularly prolific. I mean, let's look at the options on screen. João Pedro's had 1 shot in the last 3 games. Is that really going to keep up? No, probably not. Bowen obviously had Potter at the start. Not only was it the coaching, but also the team selection, who he was playing with and how he was being platformed. None of that really helped him in terms of his ability to generate chances and score goals. They also started with some really tough fixtures. Mateta's massively underperformed in terms of both underlying stats, but also eye test. He could have so much more. Voltemada started strong. Gyökeres, we'll talk about later. Isak, obviously, the transfer hasn't helped him out. And there's other forwards on here that aren't listed that just haven't either had the rub of the green or circumstances have dictated that they've done poorly. It's unlikely that trend continues for the whole season. And what I would say is, whilst having a really good defense is important, especially one which prioritizes DEFCON, there is opportunities with these forwards just to catch on to them at the right time. I think before we were more willing to, use transfers in different departments. Whereas now, I think with the strength of the midfielders, at least how they look at the moment, and the defenders, given their DEFCON ability, maybe it's actually the forwards that we look at just hopping on and off. Target the fixture run, it's gone. All right, cool, get off. Because for them to be viable in your side, especially at these more expensive price points, you really need them to be returning. And not only just returning, but when they score, you need to be able to get bonus from them as well, which is one reason why I like Bowen so much. So that's what I'd say. We've definitely had a shift in this Premier League season in terms of how teams have been playing. I would say, however, that shift is probably not likely to last for the entirety of the season. You'll see some more goals and some better attacking play. And on top of that, the forwards, for a variety of reasons, themselves have all been under-firing, if you want to put it like that, in FPL. And again, I imagine that would change, just given the abundance of quality in terms of the players. So that's that. Now that the macro side of things has been assessed, let's move on to the micro and the players themselves. And no one better to start with than the highest scoring and the highest owned player on this slide, and that is JP João Pedro. For me, this is actually quite a complicated topic. I think it's easy to say that he has really good fixtures coming up, and he does. And he plays for a good team, and he does, and he's a very good player, and he is. And that should translate into points. And you know what? It probably will. So look a little bit deeper, however. If you look at the recent performances, right? Liverpool and Brighton, I'd say two games where you certainly do get offered space in behind. You do get offered the ability to hurt them in transition. And in neither of those games did he really take that. Now, one reason is, for example, in the Brighton game, he's dropping deeper a lot to receive than carrying. And scoring in that sense, from that way, very difficult. Even to generate assists with where our wingers are stationed, with his final pass. And by that, I mean, for example, his timing of release and the weight of pass can be a little bit off. It's going to be difficult for him to generate goals or assists from that. And in terms of when he's stationed in those more number 9-like positions, he's a little bit further away from the box because neither of those guys are operating in a deep block. And he doesn't really have a creative supply. There is no Cole Palmer in the team. The wings are quite wide. The chance creation methods are a little bit different. The guys crashing the box is more so Enzo. So in that sense, I think for those games, that explains why it's looked like he hasn't even got close to returning. Whereas a game like Forest, if you look at how they set up at Newcastle, very, very deep. Now, will they set up as deep against us? No. Will they be as defensive against us? No, I don't think so. One, because they're at home, and I think they'll look at our defense and maybe think they can get at it a bit more. And the fact that we're going to take a more attacking approach than Newcastle anyway. But regardless, I still think that it won't be the Brighton or the Liverpool type of game, and we'll have them pinned a little bit more. And I actually think this, in our particular team, may be a setup which is more suitable. Then we've got Sunderland, they'll do something similar. And then we have Spurs, which I don't love, but like it's still a game that we can score goals. They'll give you a chance at least. And then obviously we've got Wolves and Burnley. Again, I just think 4 out of those 5 will be blocks to varying degrees, but deeper blocks. And I actually think that is a type of game where he's more likely to return. If you look at the games, like I discussed, Liverpool-Brighton, again, he didn't have so much. The thing about the games beforehand is, okay, yeah, fine. Against Palace, he had very little, and that was but that is a different type of deeper block. That's an unbelievably good one. Not to take anything away from the other sides, but we're not playing a side of the defensive quality of Crystal Palace. Then the West Ham game is a bit of an anomaly. No one's going to play like that. No one's going to be that open. No one's going to have that lack of legs in midfield. So we'll just put that to the side. And then the other one's the Fulham one. Obviously, we go 2-0 up and they become a lot more open. And in that game, right, which is got similar conditions to the one I'm describing, there he looked like he could have certainly had more than one easily, right? And he should have done so. So I actually think going forward, he'll be quite a good option. He also is suspended for the Ajax game, and that's just good for his minutes. And yeah, I think he'll start all the 4 Premier League games that are coming up. There's certainly like a game maybe against Sunderland where you wouldn't mind if Tyreek George or Mark Gay started up at 9 and he could play second striker. But even if that doesn't happen for his 9 role, which may not be so suitable in the other games, I think in this type of one, it's okay. Bowen, one great thing about Bowen is if he scores, he's looking really good for the bonus point system. And like I said, with strikers and the forwards, you really need that now. With the defenders being able to hit DEFCON, you need to be able to hit that bonus point stuff to almost offset it. So that when you do well, you do really well, not just well. The fixtures are really good. I mean, Brentford at home, Leeds away. Newcastle at home is not great, but then Burnley at home again. 3 out of the next 4 are at home. Under Nuno, they've already looked better. They've looked a lot more solid. I love the personnel, the team selection much more than I did under Potter. I mean, Fernandes, Masaga, Paqueta, Somerville, Bowen, and then having a 9. And I think now that Fulkrug's injured, it'll probably be Callum Wilson. I rate him more as a player, so maybe they could get a combination going, and you could see Bowen scoring in that sense. If he has to play at 9 in this particular setup, I don't think it's the end of the world. And I wouldn't be surprised if this guy, with those fixtures, does pretty well, right? I think you could certainly see him scoring 2 in the next 4. And if he does, let's say he just goes 9-9, 2-2, as an example, you end on 22 points from 4 games, 5.5 apiece. Very solid, right? Very, very, very solid. And the only guys who would have beaten him are the defenders who have done quite well so far. And you know what? There's no reason that he can't score 3 or he can't haul in the game, right? I've only given him 2 returns. So, yeah, I think he could do really well in the period coming up, and I expect West Ham to get a lot better. Mateta, like I spoke about in the earlier section, I mean, he could have had so many more goals. If you look at his stats, you look at the eye test, he really should have had more returns than he's had so far. Palace have got a good fixture run. I think the Bournemouth game's fine. It's obviously just Arsenal in 9, which is very challenging. But after that, for a while, the good fixture run lasts for quite a while. And if you wanted to go here, I'd have no complaints, especially if you're not too keen on Sarr or having double Palace defense. Voltemada's ceiling just concerns me a little bit. One, due to the expected minutes, just because Osulu's always going to be there, maybe to take 20 minutes off him to manage the load as well. Maybe you can stick Gordon up top for some games towards the back 20. That's something to consider. And also, Newcastle haven't been flowing in attack. They haven't replaced Lewis Hall. They've also lost Tino Livramento. You're going to get less from the fullbacks. Maybe they create less chances. They'll certainly put less crosses in now that Lewis Hall's not there and Livramento's not there. So I do wonder if their chance creation goes down and his ceiling's affected as such. So personally for me, I wouldn't, but I can see him being quite consistent, like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pointers on a fairly consistent basis. That wouldn't surprise me. The limitation of ceiling and the limitation of chance creation means that the floor does go down, and as such, I'd probably avoid. I don't like the Gyökeres pick. I think 9 million. 9 million is a really expensive price point, given the current structures. I mean, outside of Saka, outside of Haaland Salah, the only one down below that's at the more expensive price point that you'd really be looking at is Bukayo Saka. I think he's very justifiable, all things considered. Maybe even if you wanted to go Bruno Fernandes, I'd prefer it to a Gyökeres shout, especially when the opportunity cost for that Arsenal spot is so high. Eze, who will come on to talk about, Timber, Calafiori, Raya, right? Those guys are so solid. Whereas with Gyökeres, in these games like Fulham and Palace, whilst I actually think Arsenal are going to do well in both, and I'm really bullish on their attack, him not so much. And maybe he gets 20 minutes taken off him here and there just because, you know, they've got UCL as well. They've got the Carabao Cup, so everyone needs to get some rotation where he hasn't been substituted too much recently. He's not in form. He doesn't necessarily have penalties, but he definitely doesn't have them full time. And as such, I don't think you should go here. I spoke about it before. The routes to points for him are hitting that channel, particularly the left one, running in behind and transitions. And against Fulham and Palace, you're not getting too much of that. You're getting a very physical duel. You're probably getting 3 flat centre-backs deep. Against all of those guys, his ability in the box isn't great. Those Chris Wood finishes last year, which I've referenced a lot, quick, snappy, not really his thing. Headers, not really his thing. So I would personally just steer away. Isak, I wouldn't do it. I mean, so expensive. You have to make a big-ish sacrifice elsewhere in your side to have him. And they haven't hit form. I mean, Ekitike's looked better than him this season. He could have his minutes reduced because Ekitike can come on. And even with the fact that he's got minutes in the international break, he still doesn't look like super sharp. And he's not been in a winning team, right? Like ever since he's come to Liverpool. Okay, they've won some games, but they lost the last 2 and they haven't looked great. And then he's obviously lost quite a bit of seed and it just doesn't really seem to be going his way. So I would avoid him as well. JP, Bowen, and Mateta are definitely my favorite 3 here, as you can see. And I'd have JP and Bowen probably just a cut above, mainly just because I don't think they'll really get subbed, like especially with JP not having to play that Ajax fixture. Whereas Mateta, I can see maybe at times with Nketiah, and I'd say the fixtures for the other 2 slightly better, if not significantly better. They don't have Arsenal away, right? As well. Their good ones are better than Mateta's good ones, and they don't have the bad one. And then Calvert-Lewin and Lyle Foster, I actually get the Calvert-Lewin pick. I mean, the fixtures are really good, especially in terms of how it rotates with some of the other popular options that you may bench. He has certainly accumulated a decent amount of chances in his time at Leeds so far. You know he's got quality, but it's just the finishing, right? That's the main thing. It's just the finishing. So if you were to go there, I would get it. If you weren't to go there, due to the finishing and the lack of floor as such, again, I would get it. And Foster, I think, you know what? If you've got the money in a certain type of draft and you don't want nothing in that 8th spot, but you only want to spend 5, from what I've seen of him as a player, good. I think he's a good player. And I think he'll score a decent amount of goals, relatively speaking, for Burnley this season. So if you wanted to go there, I have absolutely no complaints. I don't mind it. This is very much dependent on your structure, right? And every will be different. But what I wanted to say is that I certainly don't mind it. And yeah, I think those are all the particularly important forward options wrapped up. If anything is there that I haven't discussed, maybe like Thiago, and you want that discussed, let me know and I'll get it in SYP. On the last slide, you saw my usual way of doing things when I assess a category. I'll list all the players, make a few notes, split them up, etc. Right? And I very much expected to do that for the midfielders. And then I started to compile a list of all the midfielders that I thought were relevant to talk about. I just kept going on and on and on and on. And I realized I wouldn't be able to fit it in one slide. And even in two, there'd be so much detail that it wouldn't exactly look very visually appealing. So what I did is I decided I'm going to go to the stats page on the actual official website. And I'm basically just going to go down the list and speak about all the midfielders that I think are relevant to speak about, of which there are many. So let's start. Semenyo is not one of them because by his ownership, you can basically tell the whole story. I mean, with these fixtures, like even these, whilst they're not great defensively, and I don't like the Palace one offensively, these are all fine. And like he's in such good form, there's no reason to bet against him. And 7.9 is still very affordable for what he's offering you. So that's that. For me, Caicedo, like I get it, but 5.8 million now is still, it's kind of expensive for a DEFCON mid, right? Especially when someone like Granit Xhaka exists at 5 million, someone I think is a really, really good option, honestly. I mean, he'll hit DEFCON pretty much like nearly every game, or at least it looks that way at the moment. And he's just, irrespective of the role he's playing, he's going to get you some attacking returns at some point, whether it's from a set piece, whether he crashed the box, it's a sledgehammer type of shot, a free kick, like he's going to get something. You just know that. And Caicedo's gone 1-1-1-1-1 in terms of the goals he scored in the last 4 seasons. And here, he's already got 3. Cracker against Liverpool, corner goal against West Ham, and then the goal against Brentford, another cracker. There was a season where Rodri was doing that a lot for Manchester City, and that was actually their way of breaking down blocks. I don't think, however, we're setting it out. Like City used to literally manufacture that situation for him. The goal against Liverpool and the goal against Brentford, they weren't manufactured. It kind of just came about from what we were doing in our usual idea. So I don't think this is likely to continue. If it does, I think you get a little bit lucky. And it also requires him to put the ball in from a very hard chance. So I don't think the goals will still be there. And without them, all of a sudden, he's very solid, right? Because he's going to hit DEFCON very, very often. But I wouldn't mind you opting for like maybe another defender who's a little bit more expensive, even if you wanted to go up to the premiums, or a little bit cheaper who can at least hit DEFCON regularly and get clean sheets with some attacking potential. Maybe Munoz at 0.2 would be a better option than Caicedo, right? I did not mean to do that. So yeah, that's that. I did not mean to do that. Okay, anyway, going back to it, let's look at the rest. All right, Kudus. I personally don't love this option. I think these fixtures aren't great. I mean, Villa, I expect to get better. Anana's back as well, so I just think they'll be a lot better. They've also won like 4 on the bounce, I think, in all competitions. So very solid. Everton, not that easy. Not too bad given the way they defend at the moment, but still not great. Chelsea, United, Arsenal, Fulham, Newcastle. After that, it's okay, but it's still not great. So I wouldn't, especially with the mainly because of the lack of goal threat and the other options available. Saka, I love this option. I think he looks really good at the moment. I think he's got a lot over Gyökeres at the moment. Arsenal's attack with Eze in the middle is one that's really impressed me. And the fixture run, you know what? Usually I look at Fulham and I think, I don't really fancy that, especially like when you go away to Fulham. But this season, this Arsenal, with Eze in the middle, and the fact that Robinson probably won't play this game, at least to my knowledge at the moment, I fancy it. And I fancy him to put like 3 past them in that game. I really do feel confident in this Arsenal side and think they're going to do very well. Palace isn't great, but you know what? Like I said, I think they're good enough. I think they're good enough to cause anyone problems offensively with Eze in the middle. I like the new dynamics as well. So I think they're better this season at least. So even this game, I'm not too concerned. And then obviously this is Plum. And yeah, just in general, I don't think there's any side that I look at and I think, yeah, you're really going to stop Arsenal attacking. Maybe these guys, if they're playing well, and maybe City, but both those games are gone. So I like it. This is when we get to my wildcard video tomorrow, team selection. This is like my main toss-up. I don't think he's as good of an option as other people say. All right, let's just look at the return so far. Okay, one of the big things that's been pointed out is his XG being 3.8. He scored, obviously. He literally had an open goal, right? Against West Ham, again, he literally had an open goal. That's where the XG is really coming from in this game. And he had another couple big chances, which are of a pretty similar nature, okay? The Fulham game, yeah, high XG, but he took the penalty. And I don't think he's going to be on penalties. If you ask someone at the ground what they saw, they would have told you that they saw JP giving him the ball. And he was also receiving some criticism that game. I think he chucked the armband at halftime or something. Like, he just wasn't happy in this Fulham game. And my expectation is that JP will actually be our penalty taker while Palmer's out. Then outside of that, he hasn't had too much. And really for him, it's all about arriving and crashing. Yeah, okay, he can get some assists from set pieces, as he did here and here. Not taking that away. And he's good in the final third, right? But he's not super prolific. 6 goals, 8 assists under Maresca last season in 32 starts. He's already on 3 and 2. Bit of an overperformance. The XG wouldn't say so, but I think the performances are ones which may suggest that. This game was so open, this West Ham game. We're not getting another opportunity like this. I don't think anyone's going to play like how they did, right? The Fulham game, again, you take the penalty out, it's not that impressive. He didn't have too much. Yeah, he had moments in the second half when they opened themselves up, but not too much. Liverpool, again, he didn't really have much in that game from an attacking standpoint, just that last minute header where the game turned very chaotic. And then again, the Brighton one, I don't think we didn't create too much. He just got into good positions a couple of times from crashing the box. So what I'm trying to say with that is, 1, the conditions were there for him to crash, and 2, the volume isn't so high. Now you go to these fixtures. Are these fixtures, Spurs aside, ones where you're really expecting to be able to crash so well when the opposition's going to be deeper? I don't think so. And it's not like he's the best finisher, whereby with a low volume, he's always going to take a chance he gets, which is not the crash typing chance, more so when it just falls to him or he can manufacture a shot. No, not really. So for me, whilst the fixtures are really good, I wouldn't want a double up of JP, Enzo Fernandez, ideally. I think that's putting too much trust in our attack, and I don't think we'll score enough goals whereby going for both of them is necessary. Is it a good play to increase your floor? Yeah, absolutely. Because across these 5, right, or across these 7, let's say, we will score enough goals whereby both of them probably get some returns, and maybe they both do all right. But I think one will do better than the other. For now, I'm leaning towards JP. I don't think Enzo's going to blow people away with his scores for the reasons I've discussed. And I don't mind fitting it. Obviously, there's a lot of good things going for him, right? If he is able to crash, that's great. He's playing in a fairly advanced attacking role. He has set pieces. Maybe he can get some points from DEFCON. This is a good fixture set, so all the things that come with it. If we do keep clean sheets, he's getting a point, and so on, right? I just don't think it's as good as people say. And people call him a essential or a lock. I personally wouldn't go that far. And this is partially in turn with the fact that a lot of people also have JP, and I don't trust us enough. I don't think our attack's good enough whereby you'd want the double up. Palmer Pedro at the start of the season was a little bit different, but he's not Palmer. So that's that. Sarr, really solid. On all fronts, eye test stats, really solid. Fixtures, I think Bournemouth game's fine. He'll get some space in behind to hit. The dynamics are good for him. They'll have some transitions. 9 is horrible for everyone. This is the best defense in the world. But, it is what it is. He can still return. You can always bench him. But then after that, the fixture runs. Plum. So I like that. This guy. See, where I'm not as keen on Enzo as most people, I'm really keen on this guy. Actually, you'll find out tomorrow. What he showed at Palace is this capability to be explosive in little parts of the season, right? And just get really big hauls in games. I think you put him in the middle, in an Arsenal side that are making chances, in a role which is actually a little bit freer than you'd expect from a Arteta midfielder. At this price, with these fixtures, I like it a lot. I'm really not that concerned about Arsenal for these two. Before and every season before, yeah, they'd look bad. Palace especially are flying at the moment. But I rate this Arsenal attack so highly. He's got such a high ceiling. He's so explosive. He's playing in a preferred role. Maybe he'd prefer left centre mid. He would, but I think. But whatever. Right centre mid's not so bad. And with those combinations with Saka, I think he can get returns. Plus, he's allowed to float, as the last game showed. With these 4 fixtures, such high upside. Don't get me wrong, the opportunity cost is massive, not getting second Arsenal defender in Calafiori and Timber, who both can get DEFCON, but can also get attacking returns from open play and from set pieces and the clean sheet potential. So the opportunity cost is high. I just think this guy could be so good, though, for the reasons discussed. So something to consider. Reijnders, really solid pick. I'm completely okay with this. I stand by what I've said basically since the start of the season, that I think in the final third, he's got a slight challenge with the temperament. He's a little bit overly snappy, especially when you have those situations where the block is set up and he needs to play that maybe more disguised pass, maybe slightly cuter pass, slightly cuter finish, as opposed to opting for power and doing things so quickly. But that being said, after Everton, Villa, Bournemouth, Liverpool, Newcastle, those are games where you kind of get those opportunities. Very affordable price point. Looks like it'll be good minutes. Maybe he gets DEFCON like here and there. I don't think it'll happen very often with how much City keep the ball. Obviously got in the Arsenal game. I don't think it'll happen very often, but he'll at least do decently enough in this to help him in the bonus. So yeah, I don't mind it. I think he's cheap, good enabler, still in certain conditions, good ceiling. Love. Think super underrated option. Sunderland have been okay so far. I say okay. They've been better than okay. I personally think these 6 games, they've got a bit lucky. I discussed this quite a bit last game week, so I won't do that. So again, they didn't make much against United. But he himself, like I said earlier, he's going to get a return at some point, an attacking return. Too much quality not to. DEFCON-wise, I mean, if we just take a look, 13, 20, 18, 11, 13, 8, 6. So the floor's high, right? He's, apart from these 2 games, which aren't even so bad, he's getting in or thereabouts. And he's shown the capability to go far past that, which is good. You know that you're not just getting someone who just about can hit it, but can surpass it easily as well. I think over the long run, that'll lead to more DEFCON returns. If they keep a clean sheet, if you play him against Wolves or Everton, great, another point. And he is getting an attacking return at some point. And in these games, 9 and 11, as long as he doesn't get booked, it's basically like a guaranteed 4-pointer. It's pretty good. And that's at 5, not 5-8 like Caicedo. So I like that. Would avoid. Just don't think he scores enough goals. He's not ruthless enough in the final third for me to go here. Also, these guys are kind of like inverse FDR. So the good fixtures, like for example, Leeds at home, they'll find a way to lose. Like look at this. They beat Chelsea and they beat City. But then they'll lose to Bournemouth and Everton, who are not bad sides at all, but you get the point. And then draw to Wolves when they probably should beat them. And draw to Spurs. And like, you know, they just inverse all this FDR. So I wouldn't go here. Don't think the ceiling's high enough. Don't think it's floor high enough. Considered Anthony Gordon a lot. For me, they're just not creating enough chances at the moment. Dynamics aren't great. And the ceiling's not too high with that fact. And also, I don't trust him to even have that high of a floor and definitely return at least an assist here or there. So I'm going to avoid, but I don't mind it. Ndiaye, you want to stick here? I mean, you could get DEFCON City away, right? He could maybe even play on the left with Grealish out. They could go Tyler Dibbling on the right as a nice little outlet. And for the rest of that, the fixtures aren't too bad, especially for him, right? Because like he's got penalties. He's so good in the pockets. Like you just get him in there. He can always generate returns from a little bit of magic. And if they keep a clean sheet, you know, which they can do, unlike some of the other sides, to a slightly better extent, I'd say. 3 points as a base. So I don't mind this. You want to keep him? Cool. As an enabler on a wildcard? Cool. Would I... Oh, by the way, that was Josh King who I was saying. If you're not watching, if you're listening, if you want to keep him on as an enabler on the wildcard, previous to that was Iliman and Ndiaye. Anyone else here to really speak about that's super important? I'd say Bruno Fernandes, because a lot of you guys own him. I don't mind keeping him. I mean, he'll probably get DEFCON in that Liverpool game. He can get DEFCON in quite a few games given the role. And if he gets an attacking return, he's so good for bonus. I don't think this is an essential transfer out. And if United come good or he comes good, then great. If you wanted to spread the funds or just upgrade him to Saka as well, I would get that. But I certainly don't think he's like a sell at the moment. More so just for the attacking threat, I wouldn't go Cullen. I'd rather have Xhaka. But obviously very good on DEFCON. And the fixtures for Burnley are pretty good. I mean, like Leeds at home, Wolves away, 10's horrible in Arsenal, and West Ham away in 11. And then 13, Brentford away. It's pretty good, right? And then the last 2 guys to speak about. My only concern with Paqueta is I don't watch him and see someone who's so ruthless in that final third to constantly provide me goals and assists. I feel if I get them, I'm a little like I feel like I'm hoping for it as opposed to expecting it with him. They have had tough fixtures though to start with. He's never been platform better than this to score goals and assists. So I don't mind it, but I think you would have to appreciate it is a risk. It is a risk to go with Paqueta. But like I said, the fixtures are so good, and he's never been platform like this, and he's got some chance to get DEFCON. So I don't mind it. I just think it's a slightly awkward price point. You can go a bit more expensive and get Enzo, for example, someone a lot of people really love, or you can go cheaper and spend the money elsewhere, get a bigger upgrade, and have Xhaka in the spot, who will probably do very well, honestly, I think, in the next 4, all things considering. But he could be really good. Got the potential. And then lastly, we'll speak about this guy maybe a bit later. Well, next is actually the wildcard section, so I guess I'll speak about him. That's obviously horrible for 14.5 million at the start of the season. Very few expected that. It's just this. It's just this, the quality of player, right? This guy, and then game week 8, Man United at home. Maybe the perfect turnaround. But I'm not going to speak about him now. I will speak about him when I get to the wildcard section. But yeah, those are all the mids wrapped up that I think are necessary to speak of. Like the forward section, if at any point I didn't mention someone you want me to speak about, let me know and I can do so in SYP. Now in this section, I'm going to show you 5 different wildcard drafts. There are so many different variations you could go in Game Week 8 for a wildcard. So for example, maybe you really like the structure of one draft, but you change a couple players around, right? That will be the case in every single draft I show you. It's more so showing you a lot of my preferences currently, but I'm certainly open in pretty much all the cases for a bit of wiggle room to change this player and this player if you don't like a couple spots, as an example. I'm going to start with the drafts, which are more 3-4-3 orientated because they have JP and Bowen, and you'd be playing them pretty much every week. If not certainly, maybe Bowen gets rested on your bench for Newcastle at home with this side, but that's about it. We'll start with the left. Like I said, these are obviously my preferences, and there's so many variations you could go. And I've tried to include quite a few, so just keep that in mind. This draft on the left, I really, really, really like it. You obviously heard in the last section my reasons for not valuing Enzo Fernandez as highly as a lot of people are doing at the moment, in which case I'm happy to take him on with JP, and who I think is the better asset. You have brilliant cover as your 8th for Xhaka, not too expensive, but you're getting really, really good cover, especially with the short-term / medium-term fixtures. Saka, Eze, I think, have got great potential with Arsenal's attack. Semenyo is so obvious. Haaland is so obvious. Sarr with the fixtures, especially the price as well, I think is great. And then, yeah, I gave JP and Bo in their own sections earlier. They're really solid. And then in terms of the defense, Gabriel plays every game. The keeper rotation is great. Like you don't need to have, like, for example, the perfect fixture every week from the keeper, because actually having a bad fixture sometimes works out, right? You hit the clean sheet, but now you also get saves and you also get bonus. Pope is really good on the bonus point system. And obviously I've already got triple Arsenal, so there's no room for Riot in this draft. And I will come on to a different variation on this in a second with the one on the right. And then in terms of the defense, I mean, Senesi, Richards, Anderson, great on DEFCON. Rodon, not so bad himself. This week, you play Richards and Rodon because I personally expect that Palace put in a better performance than Bournemouth. I think Bournemouth, with their current block-breaking dynamics, could struggle against what Palace pose them, and then Palace could hurt them in transition. I am slightly wary of a magical Semenyo moment to wipe out the Palace clean sheet, but nonetheless, I think that's solid. And then next week, you'd play Senesi. And look, you could play Rodon again when he goes to West Ham. Not ideal with Bowen, so maybe he becomes a Stev. Instead of Burnley away, you get Leeds at home. And then next week, you get Wolves away, right? Again, Stev has a lot of good qualities. With Anderson, if you really wanted to play him at Newcastle away, then do it, right? He's probably going to get DEFCON. And if they only score 1, that's a 4-pointer. And you'd bench Richards, most likely, considering it's Arsenal away. But if you fancied him to get DEFCON and you could see them keeping Arsenal out, maybe you play him. In terms of Xhaka, honestly, you could play him basically all the weeks, and I think it's completely okay with how high his floor is. I wouldn't even mind benching someone in here for Xhaka if you could justify it. But yeah, overall, the draft is really solid. Tomorrow, what I'll do is I'll have the Fantasy Football Hub, my team tool out, and I'll run through the drafts in the future weeks. But essentially, the front 8 is so solid. Even if you just bench Xhaka every week, that's such a solid 7, and these defenders rotate nicely. Okay, moving on to the right. Again, a variation of the 3-4-3. But this time, instead of having Eberechi Eze, you take a second Arsenal defender and you go for Enzo Fernandez. Now, I didn't have the money to go Calafiori to Timber, but if you had 0.2 more than me, you could make Calafiori Timber. And the thing with this is, it's so good because Palace and Bournemouth overall have quite a nice rotation, right? This week you'd play Palace, in my opinion. Next week you'd play Bournemouth. Then you'd play Palace. Then you play Palace. Then you could go Bournemouth if you wanted. Not to mention the fact that like Palace also, what I said, Bournemouth, have decent fixtures as well. And you just play double Arsenal every week. You take the high clean sheet probabilities. You take the fact that both of these guys can score from set pieces, Calafiori from open play. And you've always got Rodon there as well, if you need a bit of cover. You have so much depth with Xhaka. So overall, these drafts I really like. And of course, you cover yourself by having Enzo Fernandez. Okay, yeah, you don't have Eberechi Eze, but most people aren't going to own him. Double Arsenal defense can't really hurt you as much now. Your Arsenal asset is not Raya, right? It's Calafiori. So not only are you unlocking a higher ceiling goalkeeper in Pope, but your Arsenal asset's also higher ceiling than Raya. And yeah, I think with the rotations, with the strength of the players, it's great. And these are two examples of drafts. I'll now go on to slightly different variations, like more 3-5-2 versions. Oh, and another thing is, with the DEFCON capabilities of this backline, you can always play 4 at the back if for whatever reason you didn't fancy Bowen at Newcastle, and the same week you didn't want to play Xhaka either. Moving on to drafts which are more of the 3-5-2 nature, but like I concluded in the last section, if you wanted to play at 4 at the back with these, you absolutely could. And I think playing 4 at the back, especially if you're not confident in the forwards, is great. Especially if you're not confident in the forwards. Take your DEFCON, take your clean sheets, take the fact that you can get 17 pointers with just 1 goal and the side playing decently well, and the defender literally just doing his job. Great. I don't mind it at all. On the left, you will see a very interesting 3-5-2 draft, right? You will see one which includes Enzo Fernandez and JP to target Chelsea's fixture run. You've got Reijnders, who I guess you could rotate with DCL. And then the defense is just so strong. I mean, to have Gabriel, Timber, you play every week. Senesi, obviously, with the Palace rotation. But Munoz, I mean, amazing asset. DEFCON and attacking potential. Such an attacking role. It's just so great. That defense is so good. And a lot of the weeks, you could just play back 4. Like, you know what? Reijnders, I don't want you. Calvert-Lewin, I don't want you. Oh, actually, I don't want to double Chelsea this week. You have so many options because out of those 3 players, or 4 players between JP, you just have to play 2. If you just can consider that we'll play JP every week, Reijnders, Enzo, Calvert-Lewin, just play one of them with that strength of the back 4, right? With the DEFCON and attacking potential capabilities and clean sheet likelihood. So good. Really good draft in my opinion. You can obviously make changes to this. You know what? Maybe you do want this type of structure, but you don't want Reijnders. You actually do want Eze. So Reijnders goes to Eze, Calvert-Lewin goes down, and Timber goes down. And all of a sudden, you have Enzo, you have JP, you have Eze, and you have a really strong defense. Maybe you don't want double Chelsea, so you just go JP to Bowen, and now you have Bowen and Enzo, right? So again, another really cool combination. The one on the right is another version of the 3-5-2, but this is essentially backing against Arsenal's attack. So you wouldn't do just Saka with Timber and Gabriel, or you wouldn't do Saka and Eze. Rather, you have no Arsenal attackers, and you basically change the 8th forward into a 4.3. So you have a dead spot there, which is fine considering the strength of defense, honestly. You can even play your promoted defender. I think that's cool, given the, again, ability to get DEFCON, especially in those harder games. And you basically take Saka and another midfield spot, in which case the last draft was Reijnders, but even if that was Eze, and you move him into Xhaka, who, like I said, I think is very solid, and Salah. Now, can I say I love the draft on the right? No. I personally don't mind playing Xhaka every week. I think he's really solid. But I would say I'd like a little bit more upside occasionally. And the defense, the only thing about this defense is that not having a Munoz or a Cucurella or a Timber or a Calafiori, I feel like is leaving a little bit of attacking threat on the table on a wildcard. But overall, considering you have him, Haaland, and Salah, I don't think you can complain too much. It's still overall very solid. And the floor of the team through DEFCON is, again, very high. And you will notice there's a strong preference for DEFCON. I just think it's so good this season, especially with the way people are currently playing, that you've got to embrace it. So yeah, that's what another 2 drafts, more of the 3-5-2 kind. I saw a tweet today from FPL Bronx, and it actually inspired this last wildcard slide because I was just going to do 4. But I thought, no, okay, let's do 5. Let's do a no Haaland draft. Again, like I said in earlier sections, tomorrow in the team selection, I'm going to run through like my wildcard draft and maybe a couple others all the way until to like give me 13 and then what you do there, right? So in terms of the planning, I will show it in depth tomorrow. This video is more so to assess the player prospects individually and then show the preferences I have for wildcard in a variety of different drafts. And tomorrow I will have hopefully a final one, but if not, close to it. If I wasn't to go Haaland, I'd almost definitely go this. And I just think this draft is amazing, right? Like this draft is amazing because you solve the issue of JP or Bowen, right? That could really come up as you see in those 3-5-2 slides. If you wanted Enzo Fernandez, you can just have both, right? And then Saka as obviously like you don't have to have as he can be Enzo. And then if he's Enzo, you can upgrade one of the backline. You get closer to going to a Timber or a Calafiori. And you know what? Maybe you don't want Munoz. Maybe you want Lacroix, and then you have a bit more money to ensure that, and so on, right? Maybe you don't want to promote a defender. So you take Eze out, he goes to Enzo. Munoz goes to Richards, and Rodon goes to whoever, right? Maybe even Gay as well, and you go double Palace defense. This team is stacked, right? It's obviously very similar to the last one. In the sense that like last time maybe it was Haaland and Xhaka, now it's Salah and Obi. But the point is you'd go here if you basically think that Salah is just going to outscore Erling. Because you're not only taking him on, you're taking him on in terms of captaincy as well. Is United at home a better fixture than Everton at home? Yeah, I think that's a fair statement. Salah's also a mid, higher ceiling. So if you wanted to, I get it. I just can't bet. I just don't think I'll be betting against Haaland at the moment. He's in such good form and Liverpool aren't and Salah isn't. So I personally would rather not. But if you did, I think this draft looks amazing. And like I said, tomorrow we'll go into the planning stage. And that's actually very interesting. And I've spent quite a bit of time in the last 2 days looking at it. To conclude the topics of conversation, I have a captaincy section, which is in a very different way to usual. I don't think there are too many notes to be made here, right? Hence why I've just gone for the graphic. Haaland is in the form of his life. He looks amazing. City's attacking dynamics have been much better than a lot of us expected this season, including myself. Doku's been a complete revelation on that left-hand side, and so good for him. Foden's been pretty decent. No, he's been pretty good in the middle. Reijnders in those transitional moments as well. For example, the Arsenal goal really help. And yeah, like everything is just going for him at the moment, right? And Everton aren't maybe the Everton involved. They're not as solid defensively. And Michael Keane might be out, so I think he can get them at them. No problem, right? Nothing bad to say there. Salah, it's just the fact that it's United. He loves the fixture. He himself is the highest ceiling player, I'd say, in the game. Like when he's on song, no one can compete with him because he can just put up a 24-pointer, a hat trick, and an assist in a blink of an eye. Obviously, Haaland can as well, but he's a forward, so it's different. It's just if he clicks. And they have so much talent that you're almost just expecting it. You're almost seeing it as an inevitability, well, potentially. For me, I just wouldn't time it. I wouldn't try to time it at the moment. I don't mind it considering Haaland's a forward, so I do think that like you always start a little bit in front. For example, Salah keeps a clean sheet. Okay, that's 2 points in front, right? Everything's double now because it's captained. You get a goal. Okay, fine, that's another 2 points doubled. If he is gonna put you away, right, it's gonna be 10 points instead of like 8, right? So you have that, but with the current form, I'd just leave it, and I'd probably captain Erling. If you have both, then I think it's a different discussion. All of a sudden you want to take on the upside, you're happy to accept the risk. Yeah, cool, no problem. But for now, me, it's still Erling, but I don't think Salah's a bad choice. One thing I didn't mention was the matchup for Salah tactically. I'm very much expecting Amorim to get his side to drop into that 5-4, deep 5-4-1. Salah's in general been fairly wide this season. Hasn't had the same supply from the right back. At times hasn't even had the supply from the right central midfielder. So he's not really going to be breaking on beyond that last slide. I think United will try and limit transitions, especially considering it's at Anfield. It's after the IB, so the crowd will, I'd say, be in a more positive mood, expecting a bounce back. They've got so much quality, Liverpool. So I think it's really a lot of deep 5-4-1 and not getting caught in the transition. That's the idea. Now, can you not get caught in transition at Anfield with their quality? I'm not so sure. And I do expect Liverpool to win. And I wouldn't be surprised if he hoard. It's just if United start well, with all of the problems that Liverpool have had, and they can maintain that 5-4-1 and not get too aggressive and always ensure that they're not numerically inferior in those transitions, right? In compared to what like good teams usually are, for example, Palace, like you don't see them getting caught in that fashion as much, then it could be quite a difficult day for Salah. So the conditions are there for him to do it and not to do it, which is kind of why I didn't talk about it initially. And honestly, it's anyone's guess with their form, but I just thought I'd make a few notes on the matchup. That is all she wrote for this one, ladies and gentlemen. I certainly hope you enjoyed. Wonderful to be back. In terms of the wildcard team that you'll see tomorrow, at the moment, and it has changed. Like, there's about 4 spots that keep changing. I'll talk about this maybe tomorrow. It's more likely to be the one on the left. That's what I'm currently going for. But we'll see, because there are some players that I want that are not in that team. We will see. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow for a very exciting team selection. Thank you for all your support as always, and have a terrific day. Goodbye.